We realize that high school, college, even a first job can seem scary. That's why we created education.ph to equip them with tools, connect them to schools, find scholarships, learn online, match their skills to courses and jobs out there. So their future wouldn't be as scary. Education.ph.
Taon-taon, tuwing dumarating ang pasukan, ang palaging tanong ng nakararami ay, handa ba tayo?
Kakulangan ng silid-aralan sa ilang eskwelahan, sinalubong ng mga estudyante sa unang araw ng pasukan.
Sapat ba ang ating mga pangangailangan para mas makapagbahagi ng kaalaman sa bawat kabataan? Ngunit taon-taon din, sa kabila man ng mga hamon na dumarating, sama-sama natin itong tinutugunan sa abot ng ating kakayanan. Hanggang sa
hati ang opinyon ng nakararami sa pagpapatupad ng distance learning dahil sa mga problema gaya ng mabagal na internet connection at kakulangan ng gadget na maaaring gamitin sa pag-aaral.
Naging usap-usapan yung pag-delay muna ng pasukan hanggang sa susunod na taon kung kailan mas handa ang mga bata, mga magulang, teacher at mga paaralan. Marami man ang tutol sa pagbabalik eskwela, may mga solusyon at paraan na maaari nating gamitin para ituloy ang pagpapalawak ng kaalaman. Sa panahong nailagay sa panganib ang pagpapakalat ng karunungan sa mga kabataan, atin pa ding ginagampanan ang ating pangako para patuloy na itaas ang antas ng ating edukasyon sa panahon man ng pandemya. Ika nga, learning should never stop. Anumang pagsubok, kaya nating lagpasan basta sama-sama.
Nagtatanong, natutuwa, lumalawak ng mundo niya. Masdan mo siya, namamangha, marami nang nagagawa.
Ramdam ko kung gaano kalaki ang effort ng mga guro para lang maibahagi ang nalalaman nila sa mga bata. Doble ang hirap nila sa paghahanda.
Mas nakikita ko ngayon yung paikisa ng mga magulang, yung involvement nila, para maitawid namin ang kaalaman para sa mga bata. Mas tumibay ang partnership namin to make home study work.
Malaking bagay sa akin itong barangay handbook. Mas lalo kong naiintindihan ang pangangailangan ng aking mga nasasakupan. Lalo na ngayon nasa gitna tayo ng isang malawakang krisis. Nakakatulong din ito sa kung paano namin minamanage ang peace and order sa bawat lugar ng aming barangay. Sinisiguro din namin na mabahagi sa bawat barangay tanod at mga volunteer health workers ang aming mga natutunan sa pamamagitan ng mga seminars at counseling.
Since sa ibang bansa nagtatrabaho si Mama at Papa, sinisigurado ko na nasusubaybayan ko ang kapatid ko sa kanyang online classes. Ginagawan ko ng paraan para maturuan siya sa kanyang mga lessons at mga assignment. Mahirap sa umpisa, but I need to step up para sa kinabukasan niya.
Noong panahong nangyari ang pandemya, nahinto ang mga negosyo, nagsipakulong ang mga tao, tumigil ang ating mundo. Kaalaman lamang ang muling magpapabalik nito. Karunungan para muling maibalik ang buhay ng tao.
Sa aming ika-70 taon, handog namin ay pasasalamat sa lahat ng mga naging kasapi sa misyong maging gabay ng bawat batang Pilipino tungo sa kanilang mga mithiin. Mula sa bawat individual na bahagi ng REX na patuloy tumutugon sa kanilang tungkulin sa kabila ng pandemya, hanggang sa inyong mga tagapagtaguyod ng edukasyon na patuloy na pagsuporta, tayong lahat sama-sama.
Hawak kamay, ang pag-asa, gagabayan kita dahil para sa bata, aking pagsisipin. sisikap. Para sa bata, aking hangad at pag-asa. Pangarap ko'y kung anong pangarap niya. Buong puso ko, buong puso ko, buong puso ko. Para sa bawat bata. Para sa bata, para sa bata.
Taon-taon, tuwing dumarating ang pasukan, ang palaging tanong ng nakararami ay, handa ba tayo?
Kakulangan ng silid-aralan sa ilang eskwelahan sinalubong ng mga estudyante sa unang araw ng pasukan.
Sapat ba ang ating mga pangangailangan para mas makapagbahagi ng kaalaman sa bawat kabataan? Ngunit taon-taon din, sa kabila man ng mga hamon na dumarating, sama-sama natin itong tinutugunan sa abot ng ating kakayanan. Hanggang sa
Hati ang opinyon ng nakararami sa pagpapatupad ng distance learning dahil sa mga problema gaya ng mabagal na internet connection at kakulangan ng gadget na maaaring gamitin sa pag-aaral.
Naging usap-usapan yung pag-delay muna ng pasukan hanggang sa susunod na taon kung kailan mas handa ang mga bata, mga magulang, teacher at mga paaralan. Marami man ang tutol sa pagbabalik eskwela, may mga solusyon at paraan na maaari nating gamitin para ituloy ang pagpapalawak ng kaalaman. Sa panahong nailagay sa panganib ang pagpapakalat ng karunungan sa mga kabataan, atin pa ding ginagampanan ang ating pangako para patuloy na itaas ang antas ng ating edukasyon sa panahon man ng pandemya. Ika nga, learning should never stop. Anumang pagsubok, kaya nating lagpasan basta sama-sama.
Nagtatanong, natutuwa, lumalawak ng mundo niya. Masdan mo siya, namamangha, marami nang nagagawa.
Ramdam ko kung gaano kalaki ang effort ng mga guro para lang maibahagi ang nalalaman nila sa mga bata. Doble ang hirap nila sa paghahanda.
Mas nakikita ko ngayon yung paikisa ng mga magulang, yung involvement nila, para maitawid namin ang kaalaman para sa mga bata. Mas tumibay ang partnership namin to make home study work.
Malaking bagay sa akin itong barangay handbook. Mas lalo kong naiintindihan ang pangangailangan ng aking mga nasasakupan. Lalo na ngayon nasa gitna tayo ng isang malawakang krisis. Nakakatulong din ito sa kung paano namin minamanage ang peace and order sa bawat lugar ng aming barangay. Sinisiguro din namin na mabahagi sa bawat barangay tanod at mga volunteer health workers ang aming mga natutunan sa pamamagitan ng mga seminars at counseling.
Since sa ibang bansa nagtatrabaho si Mama at Papa, sinisigurado ko na nasusubaybayan ko ang kapatid ko sa kanyang online classes. Ginagawan ko ng paraan para maturuan siya sa kanyang mga lessons at mga assignment. Mahirap sa umpisa, but I need to step up para sa kinabukasan niya.
Noong panahong nangyari ang pandemya, nahinto ang mga negosyo, nagsipakulong ang mga tao, tumigil ang ating mundo. Kaalaman lamang ang muling magpapabalik nito. Karunungan para muling maibalik ang buhay ng tao.
Sa aming ika-70 taon, handog namin ay pasasalamat sa lahat ng mga naging kasapi sa misyong maging gabay ng bawat batang Pilipino tungo sa kanilang mga mithiin. Mula sa bawat individual na bahagi ng REX na patuloy tumutugon sa kanilang tungkulin sa kabila ng pandemya, hanggang sa inyong mga tagapagtaguyod ng edukasyon na patuloy na pagsuporta, tayong lahat sama-sama.
Hawak kamay, ang pag-asa, gagabayan kita dahil para sa bata, aking pagsisikap. Para sa bata, aking hangad at pag-asa. Pangarap ko'y kung anong pangarap niya. Buong puso ko, buong puso ko, buong puso ko, para sa bawat bata. Para sa bata, para sa bata.
Junior! And then, di ba may assignment ka na dapat ipasa ngayong hapon? Ako muna dyan, hoy! Ako muna. Sige na. Nagsisimula na yung basketball. Yan! Ano ba, Junior? Mais ka na. Huwag ka nang para-hara dyan.
Nalala daw.
Na-excuse ha. Oh, nabasa ko na yung case study.
Nakikita nyo, may meeting ako dito. Nakakahiya.
Ito, sa revised penal code. Tumahimik kayo dyan. Hoy! Hindi na tayo
Doon ka na.
Sana na.
Okay ka lang?
Pipi.
Bakit?
Naman ka ba? Bakit di mo nagagawa assignment mo? Nagtatabi sa amin, kumopya ka lang eh. Nangyari, anak?
Anak, ano nangyari sa'yo?
afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the first installation of our Future Ready series. I am Bianca Insigne, and I will be your host this afternoon. So what an exciting opportunity for everyone that is here today. We are here for the first part of a 3-part live stream series. So in case you missed it, our last series was Power to the Learner. In this case, today we are going to learn about what it means to be a Future Ready leader, a Future Ready learner, and what it means to future-proof our careers. So for those of you who didn't know or maybe are tuning in for the first time today, the last live stream series we had was called Power to the Learner, where our learners were empowered to take charge of their learning, to enjoy in the learning experiences that they had, and maximize the different learning opportunities that they were faced with. So today will be more of a career conversation. But if you missed on those last 3 episodes, don't worry. We have the QR codes and the links here on your screen. So feel free to take note of those links or even take a screenshot so you can watch those episodes later. But as mentioned, today will be a career conversation that will equip you, our learners, and even the organizers and speakers as well, the different skills that we need to make sure that we can grow and progress in the 21st century. So it's going to be a very exciting session, and I hope that everyone else is as excited as I am. Can we get some comments or some reactions for those who are excited? So just comment down below, excited. Put excited in all caps if you really are excited. I see some heart reacts. That's wonderful. Okay, so it's all about getting ready for the future. So what a way to spend our weekend, right? And of course, it's wonderful to see that we are being joined by so many different students now. Great to see everyone here. How exciting that we have different people from different schools, from different parts of the Philippines. And just so you know, this entire series is part of Rex Education's program through Rex Academy. The purpose of this program is to really assist learners to help all of you in general to thrive in your teaching and learning journey. But before jumping right into it, of course, we need to acknowledge the partner who helped make this Future Ready series possible. And as mentioned, that's Rex Education. So they are the leading provider of thoughtfully crafted suite of learning solutions in the Philippines. I'm sure for our students here, you might remember that iconic crown that you can see on your screens now. You might have seen it in some of your textbooks growing up. So Rex has evolved and grown from providing printed materials to having digital complements as well, and offering learning management systems and forging meaningful partnerships with institutions for the Filipino learner. So life learning in all forms is the priority of Rex within and beyond the walls of the classroom. Rex Education aims to be every learner, every family, every educator, and every school's quintessential education partner. And of course, we also have Educacion PH, the largest online youth platform here in the Philippines, empowering millions of Filipino students to make better education decisions that lead to a fulfilling career and life. So wow, great partners today. Thank you so much, Rex and Educacion. You can learn more about their services and about what they do through the links here on your screen and the QR codes as well. So let's give them a virtual warm welcome. Thanks so much to Rex and Educacion for this wonderful experience this afternoon. So I hope that everyone is starting to get in the right mindset to be future ready, to know what it means to be future ready. So let's make sure we get our heads in the right space. We'll start with a quick icebreaker called Name It. So as the name suggests, I'll be describing a certain something, and all of the audience members here today are welcome to guess what that certain thing is. So once again, I'll be describing a certain object, something mysterious, something secret, and feel free to comment below what that object could be. So our first question here is, what belongs to you but everyone else uses it? So for all of our viewers today, one more time, what belongs to you but everyone else uses it? What could that be? Do we have any guesses? What is something that you own but everyone else uses? Any idea? Let's take a look now at our comments. You can let that sink in. Try to guess. What could that be? What belongs to you but everyone else uses it? What could that be? I think our audience members are really mulling over this one. We have a guest here. Do we have any other brave souls who want to try and figure out what this could be? Once again, what belongs to you but everyone else uses it? Name it. All right, so we have someone who made a guess here. It's Kyla, and she guessed name. That is correct. Wonderful work, Kyla. You're correct. That is something that belongs to you, but everyone else uses. Next up, what building in a town has the most stories? Name it. What building in a town has the most stories? Let's let that sink in. Oh, very quick. Somebody answered right away. Mark, you are correct. It is a library. Okay. Thank you so much to our viewers who were able to guess. Last but not least, we have one last try for anyone who wants to name it. What is something that is always in front of you, yet you cannot see? What is something that is always in front of you, but you cannot see? What could that be? Our audience seems to be thinking about this one. We have different guesses. Ooh, good guesses here in the comments. But I haven't seen the correct answer yet. What is something that is always in front of you, yet you cannot see it? It's actually related to our session today. It's in the title of the series. It is none other than the future. What is something that is always in front of you but you cannot see? Name it. It's the future, which is perfect for our session for today because, as you know, this is the hashtag Future Ready series. So speaking of the future, I believe we're all warmed up and ready for our discussion for this afternoon. So let's bring it on and future through our careers now. And it is my honor to introduce to you our esteemed guest for today's episode. He is the proud Filipino winner of the hit Asian reality TV show, The Apprentice Asia. How exciting. So with 15 years of experience, our speaker is an outstanding marketer, HR professional, and Asia's foremost motivational speaker on topics like leadership and productivity. He's also the author of multiple best-selling books in Southeast Asia that aim to inspire aspiring corporate millennials to pursue their careers. And he recently released his fourth book, Everything Will Be All Right, where he discusses the importance of mental well-being and work-life balance. Perfect for our session and for all of our viewers this afternoon. And today, he is the founder and managing director of JY Consultancy and Ventures, which provides startups with marketing and talent management services. So without further ado, let's give a warm virtual welcome to our speaker, Sir Jonathan Yabut. Hello, sir. Nice to see you this afternoon.
Good afternoon, Bianca. Thank you for having me. It's such a wonderful afternoon. And hello as well to all the viewers who are listening and staying in tune to our session for today.
Yes, that's right. Hello to everyone. Hello to you, sir. So great way to spend your weekend. Do you have anything else to add to this learning experience in your weekend? Anything you're looking forward to aside from our session this afternoon?
I'm looking to have more sleep after.
More sleep, okay.
I've had a rough week. We had so many talks this week, so I think it's going to be a weekend for rest. And I think binging Netflix this evening also.
Perfect. Okay, so right after you unload all of your wisdom to the learners today, you'll unload with some Netflix. That sounds like a good plan. I think I might do the same as well. Okay, so I believe that our learners are really excited and they can't wait anymore. Let's dive right in. Are you ready, sir?
Sorry, go ahead again.
Are you ready, sir? I'm sure our learners are really excited to start our session this afternoon.
Yes, and I'm also looking forward to the questions of our participants later on because career management is such a tricky thing to navigate. So this is what we're going to be doing for today.
That's great. Okay, so yes, we are thinking about binging the Netflix later on, but for now, we will be focusing on what it means to be future ready and to have this very important career conversation. So we've been hearing and seeing this term again and again this afternoon, future ready. So, Sir Jonathan, what does it mean to you when we say future ready learner? What is a future ready learner?
So first of all, I'm going to start with the word learner. And the word learning in itself is not an end game. So we often think that, okay, I'm going to finish this textbook on mathematics. I've learned already something. But remember that everything that you learn is a building block to another thing that you're going to learn in the future. So I need to emphasize more than anything else that learning is a lifelong activity, right? And I think that is also the theme, right? Being a lifelong learner is an important aspect. So learning does not stop after you finish university. Learning happens when you enter the corporate world. In fact, the reason why you went to school is because you're going to apply things to learn even more complex ideas when you go to either the government, NGOs, or even to a multinational company or a startup as well. So for me, when we talk about learning in this case, I need to have everyone believe in that mindset that it should not stop with just one thing, or it should not even be just one parcel and concept. So you might be into painting, but you might also want to navigate towards something else. It could be singing. It could also be analytics of math. So multiple intelligence is also something that I need to celebrate as part of learning in this case.
I see. Thank you very much, Sir Jonathan. So it looks like you're really a believer of John Dewey's concept of lifelong learning, as well as Howard Gardner with his multiple intelligences. That's great. So for all of our viewers here today, you may be in school now, and actually this talk is not just for you because you are a learner. It will continue, as Sir Jonathan said. You have a whole life ahead of you full of learning. So wonderful to hear that. So that is your take on what it means to be a learner. And do you think when we say future ready learner, it means you have that mindset that it won't stop after you complete a course or read a certain textbook?
Good question. Because when you say future ready, the future can mean the future in the next 5 years or 10 years. But the moment we finish those 10 years, it's going to be a different set of future again. And again, and again, and again. So being future ready or being future proof, if I may also use that, means that you're always anticipating of what's going to happen next. You're always anticipating of what may change. So for example, I remember 5 years ago, we were always talking about artificial intelligence. And then just a few weeks or months ago, we're all now into ChatGPT, which a lot of multinational and Silicon Valley companies were not expecting to come into play, right? 10 years ago, cryptocurrency wasn't yet into play, and yet finally it's becoming also more mainstream. So I think future ready is to always assume that I want to equip myself in the next 5 years, but after those 5 years, I acknowledge that there is another batch of equipping that needs to happen again and again. So more than anything else, it's about the mindset of the person.
Okay, thank you, Sir Jonathan. Wonderful to hear that. So anticipating what's going to happen next and the mindset that it's always going to be changing. So do you think, would you consider that as part of one of the 3 most relevant skills that learners need today, and being able to anticipate change? Or do you have another top 3 skills that you would say are most important for learners today?
Good question again. So part of being future ready assumes that what you've learned in school, meaning technical skills about mathematics, English, etc., will never be enough. So when you enter the corporate world, and I will say this now, it's always advantageous to graduate with honors. And I'm going to agree, be valedictorian, but is going to be demand. So for example, in my case, top 3 things: communication skills, No matter how intelligent or smart you are, but if you don't know how to convey that into a PowerPoint slide and you don't know how to deliver that in only 5 minutes, because mind you, the typical pitfall of a fresh graduate is to explain something for 20 minutes when someone else can only say it for only 2 minutes. And so you've beaten around the bush and people are still waiting for you to deliver the conclusion of your presentation. So communication skills is important. The second I'd like to add is leadership. So leadership is the ability to influence people even if they do not report to you in the hierarchy of the organization. It's the ability to make someone be inspired that because you have a vision, I think I can follow what you want to happen because I trust that you will get me from point A to point B. So communication, leadership. The third one, this is tricky because I think there are so many, 21st century skills that I can think of. But the third, I would say critical thinking. And critical thinking is the ability to look always at the bigger picture. So what do I mean by that? Just to give an example, your manager gives you 20 bazillion things to do on a Monday. The tendency of a fresh graduate is to say, my boss told me kailangan kong gawin lahat ito. So I'm going to finish all of them because it needs to be done. But a critical thinker will say, okay, my manager may be panicking because she thinks there are also a lot of things to do. But of these 20 things, which top 3 items are the most important that will deliver money for business? I'm going to prioritize those top 3. And then the other 17 things, I'm going to negotiate with my boss and tell them, can we do this instead on a Tuesday or on a Friday? Because I understand the bigger picture more than anything else. So you do not miss the forest for the trees. So those 3. So critical thinking, communication skills, and also leadership.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for that. So it looks like in a way, they all tie in together. I mean, important, as you said, important. If you want to be a leader, you want to influence people, even if they don't report to you, how will you do that? You have to be able to communicate, right? And as mentioned, if you're going to communicate, what exactly are you going to communicate? You need to communicate the most important things, and you'll need critical thinking skills for that. So that's great to hear. So I think our students are learning a lot already. I hope some of you guys are already taking notes because this is definitely going to be helpful, not just now when you're a student, but also when you're already working. So we have a question from the audience here already. I believe we have someone who wants to know a bit more about these skills. Can we hear from our audience member? I believe Kyla is here with a question for Sir Jonathan. Go ahead, Kyla.
Okay, good afternoon po, Mr. Jonathan. My
Good
question
afternoon.
is, what challenges might I expect as I prepare to equip myself with these skills and become future ready?
Can you repeat again? Sorry, I missed the first part.
Okay, what challenges might I expect as I prepare to equip myself with these skills and become future ready?
Ooh, okay. Parang Miss Universe ang question mo.
What challenges? Yes.
All right. I'm going to share something which I think is a personal experience of mine, but it's something that a lot of my friends also had as they went along with their careers. And that is, the moment you enter the corporate world, there will always be that one nagging feeling that will tell at the back of your mind that you'll never be going to be good enough. That there will always going to be that one person who will make you feel insecure because this person is always better than you. They're always faster than you. They're always more sociable than you. And it seems like the boss will always be applying favoritism to this person. That's normal. And the reason for that is because in the corporate world, there will always be a tendency to compare performances. Because after all, we're always after identifying which people will be able to climb the ranks. So whenever you feel, right, whenever you feel that insecurity, please take note 2 things. Number 1, that insecurity is normal. It is normal because you're a human being, and it's normal because it means that you care. You actually feel insecure because you want this so bad. It's a good thing because that means you're passionate enough to want this so bad. But number 2, whenever you feel that you're being competitive with another person at work, please transform that competition into inspiration. And that is to always tell to yourself, gosh, that person knew how to do VLOOKUP on Excel in just a matter of days. I still don't know how to do it. Rather than feeling intimidated, tell to yourself, I want to be like that person, right? If he was able to do it, What are the steps that he did so that he was able to get it done in just a matter of hours or days, right? So convert that competitive spirit into healthy competition and eventually into inspiration as well. I think the best way is to always ask yourself, what is it that this person has that I don't? And what can I do to be able to get those skills and get those personalities and traits so I can be that person and eventually create a new version that is truly an authentic version of me? Because at the end of the day, I also don't want you to become a copycat of someone else, right? You have to find your own identity also. So I need to say this because I think the generation these days, when you are so much exposed into social media like TikTok, the tendency is to always end up comparing yourself. This person has something and I don't, and therefore I'm less of a person already. Oh, this person is able to get X, Y, and Z, and I still don't. Is there something that's wrong with me? And sometimes we fail to realize, no, there's nothing wrong with you. It's just what we call as life. Some people have something more, and some people have something that's less. And that unfairness in life is what it makes it more exciting. The goal is, despite that unfairness, what can you do to make yourself, jump and soar higher in life? So there.
Okay, that's a wonderful way to look at it. Instead of being intimidated or scared or even frustrated, it's actually something that's exciting. That's great. I also think, sir, what you said, it really also fits with how different students can deal with imposter syndrome. Right?
Yeah,
so
I agree.
You get intimidated when you compare yourself to other people. For other people, maybe they're not comparing. Maybe they're thinking to themselves that I don't deserve to be here, even though they are. But I think that the insights that you shared would also fit for both scenarios.
Agree. Can I also add, when you have, if you have an imposter syndrome, which is a tendency of a person to think that they will never be good enough, there's a good sign to it. And that is, you want this so bad. That's why you worry about it. And that means the passion still exists. When you stop worrying and when you stop caring for it, it means that it's not something that you want anymore. Right? Or you might need to divert your attention to something else that inspires you and makes you happy in life.
Right. Okay. Thank you so much for that, sir. So that was our question from Kyla. The floor is now open for our other viewers. If you have any questions for our speaker this afternoon, so it can be anything about being a future-ready learner. Kyla touched upon the different challenges that one might face when they want to equip themselves with the skills for the 21st century. So once again, to all of our viewers, feel free to comment any of your questions below. So I see we have one question here, and our viewer is asking, sir, can you cite examples or certain experiences on how these skill sets matter or are applied in the real world? So once again, you mentioned communication, leadership, and critical thinking. I think you had a good example when you had to give an elevator pitch in 5 minutes. Can you share any other certain scenarios or experiences when these 3 skills are applied in the real world?
Okay, I'll give something that I was very guilty of when I was young. So I'll try to merge everything, communication, etc.
But sir, it looks like you're still young. You said when I was young.
When I was younger. There
we go. Right.
Thank you for the slight remark for that.
Yes.
Okay. When I was way younger, and ito na lang, when you enter the corporate world, there are 3 software that you will likely be using. Right? You're going to be using either Word, PowerPoint, or spreadsheets, etc. PowerPoint is likely going to be part of our lives. In fact, in schools, it's how you always present your reports in front of a class. So when you enter the corporate world, whether you're in finance, you're in a startup, marketing, sales, PowerPoints will always be there. When I was younger, I had a tendency to be so verbose. So meaning when I say verbose, like, napaka-simple ng concept, ang tagal kong i-explain. Kasi napaka-passionate ko na hindi naman na gusto ko i-explain from start to finish. Gusto kong ibigay yung background information, yung history. And then I start realizing that I was being selfish because I wanted to say it because I feel good about it. And then I forget the question, but does the audience need that info? Right? Does the audience have enough time, for example, for them to digest all of that info? Is it something that they could have read in advance if you sent it as an offline attachment in an email. So, bibigyan ako ng 15 minutes, pero syempre, pabibo ako. Gusto ko ako lagi bida. I-extend ko ang 15 minutes to 20 to 30 minutes when I've already eaten up too much time and it already affected the rest of the presentations of other people. So out of the wanting to be the best in town, I was being selfish and I did not consider anymore how it affected other people's presentations as well. So part of communication is being able to choose the right set of words. Na instead of 2 sentences, kaya mo ba siyang paikliin to 1 sentence only? Na instead na lahat ng mga words nilalagay mo sa PowerPoint, can you use icons and emoticons instead and then just explain it later on? Because here's my pet peeve. Ang pet peeve ko, magpre-present ka in front of an audience pero binabasa mo lang lahat ng text. Right? And I hate that because if that's the case, then just send me the PowerPoint instead. Read it offline. I think when you're young and when you're a fresh graduate, you have a tendency to do that too often because the more you mature in the corporate world, less text is always going to be better. Right? Less text and more visuals instead. So that unfortunately is not always polished in schools. Right? It's not always, there is no specific course. Right? Unless meron kayong elective that your school provides. There's no specific course on how to polish your ability to present. And yet, almost every day in our corporate lives, we do presentations. When you enter sales, diba? Pag magbebenta ka kunwari, whether it's an insurance, real estate, you present. Ikaw gagawa ng slides, you manage the audience. Unfortunately, those things aren't managed also in school. So, you need to improve your ability in this part.
Right, I see. And so just bringing up something you mentioned earlier about always anticipating change. I think to give some schools a bit of credit, they have anticipated that new skill, but it's not being taught in a formal course. It's just something that sometimes the teachers might slip in casually or informally. It's not really included in the curriculum. And I think that's seen in different concepts that some teachers, not necessarily the school, but some teachers are casually inserting in their lessons, like, for example, the 7x7 rule in PowerPoint presentations. Some actually say 5x5. So
yes.
Maximum 5 words or 7 words and only maximum 7 bullets. So I think people are catching on. Teachers are realizing that they can't just teach the content. They also need to teach the students how to deliver the content as well. So
Agree.
That's great. Yeah, so choosing the right set of words. Okay, thank you so much. So we've already tackled here the different skills we need to be future-ready learners. Exactly, how do you think we can develop these skills? So what do you think are the avenues where we can develop communication, critical thinking, and leadership?
So you mentioned kanina, Bianca, no, na it's good that there are sometimes it's a matter of luck that you happen to be assigned to a teacher who already knows this thing. So ako, I remember when I was in high school, si Mrs. Saez, yung aking science teacher, she was good in doing it, but I didn't have a lot of teachers who were also able to insert that from time to time because they were more focused on their module. So this is where papasok ang concept of self-learning, right? And the concept of self-learning is where you tell to yourself, if these things are not taught to me proactively, I have to initiate from my own hustle, my own efforts on how to do that. I need to say this because I think the generation today is way, way lucky because at the click of a button, you can find all of these modules and courses. Either they're for free or they're only bite-sized information you can digest in 1 hour. You can go to YouTube, you can go to LinkedIn, etc. I need to say this, nung bata ako, when I was in high school and college, we didn't have all of these things. When I was in college, naabutan ko pa ang dial-up internet, wherein it can take you 1 hour to download a simple photo. Right? Naabutan mo ba yun?
Sound effects yan, diba?
Yes. But I think, Bianca, in your case, hindi mo na naabutan yun. Naabutan po ba yun?
Naabutan ko
okay.
Sa bahay. You can use the phone.
Yes.
It tries to make a call.
Yes. Yeah, so hindi pwede magsabay, for example, ang phone call at yung internet.
You need to take turns. Samantalang yun, it seems like in some households, every family member has their own device and they can access this information, all these resources simultaneously. Yes.
And yet now, even without a laptop, using your smartphone, you can already download all of these online courses. So ako, And I've seen this a lot. During the pandemic, if you've noticed, naging viral yung mga ibang tao na as much as they can, they would take all the courses, all the certificates that they can get. Can I also emphasize this? Don't just do certificates and courses because these are all theoretical learning. Make sure you also apply them afterwards, right? So after you finished a course, kahit wala kang i-present to a certain person, gawa ka ng slides mo. Try it out on your own and see for yourself if honestly you actually like what you did, right? Ako, what I would do is I would ask one of my best friends and say, hey, can I show to you a 3 PowerPoint slide deck? Tell me what your thoughts are and be honest and brutal about it and what I can further do about it, right? Yung iba, very lucky because if you have an internship as early as now in your 2nd or 3rd year, you get to apply those immediately. So when you're able to apply them before you even graduate, ang dami na agad na bagong information makukuha mo because everyone will give you a critique on how you do.
That's great to hear. So I like that you mentioned it's important to be open to that critique. So it's not just showing the learning, but also having people give feedback. I think that's also very useful for our learners today. Okay, so for those learners who were wondering, okay, we have these skills, how do we apply them and how do we use them in the real world? Now you have the answer. Self-learning is key, as mentioned by Sir Jonathan. And of course, not just learning on yourself or even getting some of the insights from our previous series, taking charge of your own learning, maximizing the opportunities. You need to find ways to apply those as well. So I believe now we do have time for more questions from the audience. Any questions about these skills in the 21st century or how we can apply them in our learning settings, our work settings? So let's see. How do we have a question here, I believe from Jigen. Would you like to maybe share what school you're representing and your question for Sir John?
Good afternoon. I'm Jigen Castro Vicentuan. I'm from Pamantasan ng Lungsod ng Valenzuela. I just want to ask, can you give us tips or tools on how we can ensure that we have the proper skill set that we needed for the future?
Thank you, Jigen. I think what you're referring to is being able to evaluate whether you're on the right track. So before I answer that question, I'm gonna introduce one quick concept lang, and it's called the reference bias. So the reference bias in psychology is where you often think that you're good because you're only comparing yourself to the people who are conveniently around you, right? So for example, akala mong gwapo-gwapo mo, hindi ka kasi lumalabas ng bahay. Because your point of comparison is only perhaps the people around you. Akala mo magaling ka mag-basketball because you're the MVP of your barangay, but the moment I put you into the NBA or to the PBA, you're just a nobody, right? So part of learning is also evaluating. And part of evaluation is to comparing how you are performing also versus others. Kaya it's a tricky water because comparing cannot always be a good thing because you might feel insensitive or insecure about yourself. But when I say evaluating yourself, always aim for the highest standards by identifying what those standards are. So for example ako, balik ako sa PowerPoint para lang madali yung ating example. When I find ways to improve my ability to do PowerPoint, I'm always obsessed in attending meetings na kahit hindi ako imbitado, I will say, pwede ba ako mag-sit in? Gusto ko lang makita paano siya mag-present. And if it's okay for them that I sit in, I will sit in because I want to see how that person presents down to their templates, their choice of colors, paano sila mag-handle ng Q&A, do they answer the questions in the middle or do they handle it at the end of the presentation, for example. And then I compare that to how I do it, and then I compare it again to another person that I sit in for in another meeting, and then I collect and select. And I do that repeatedly, day in and day out, until I finally tell to myself, of all these things that I've gathered, I think these are the best practices that will work out for me based on my personality, and then I will apply it. And then, trial and error ulit. Doon sa mga nakuha ko, sa mga in-apply ko, which one worked out, which one ang hindi benta sa audience, and then I filter and select which ones really do well for me. So this is not only applicable in PowerPoint presentations. This is also applicable, for example, in leadership. It's applicable in selling. It's applicable also in, if you happen to, let's say, work for a BPO, if you happen to work for, if you become an entrepreneur or gagawa ka ng isang software, most things in life are trial and error. right?
Right,
You don't
right.
you don't get it right once. If
Mhm.
either you do it that way, you're either called a genius or naswertehan mo lang. But most of us get it only right on the second or third or fourth attempt. So that continuous learning is part of being able to compare yourself versus others. Because here's the catch, guys. Unlike in school, ang measurement lagi if you're able to do it right is the score. If you got it perfect score of 100, you got it right. Kapag pumasa ka hanggang score of 85 or 75, you got it right. When you enter the corporate world, you're not going to be evaluated in terms of numbers all the time, right? When you pitched a product to a client, it's not like the client will say, "Oh, sige, bibili ako ng produkto mo because you got an 8 out of 10." They're not going to say that to you. The only measure is, did they buy it or not? Right? And so the part of evaluation is to be able to compare. And part of comparing is being observant with how other people do it and being the most absorbent sponge that you can always learn from a person, even if they're way better than you and you feel insecure also about that.
Okay, thank you, Sir Jonathan. So evaluation, I think that's not common knowledge to a lot of learners. Sometimes it's just checking off, I know this, I know that, I've mastered this skill, but the evaluation is just as important as the learning. So on that note, how would you be able to know if you are ready, if you are done with the evaluation, or will you ever be done with evaluation? Will you ever be able to say, I'm ready for the future because I evaluated my skills? How would you know if you're done or if you're ready?
So two things. And this is going to be an art because it's never going to be a science. It's not going to be, again, para siyang litmus test na parang, lalagyan mo ng thermometer ang katawan mo and it says na, you're now ready, right? So it's always going to be, number one, how you feel about yourself. And I will always measure it based on the amount of happiness and satisfaction that you get from what you do. I need to say this because sometimes you might be doing something, but if you're not happy about what you're doing, napilitan ka, or because you were forced to do it, for example, or because you didn't have any choice, there will come a point wherein your learning is going to be stagnant. Your learning is going to stop to a point wherein you think you've already done enough, so why bother doing more? Versus you're so, like the reason why I chose to become a motivational speaker as my source of living is because it's exactly what I've been wanting since I was in college. When I was in college, I was part of the debate varsity team, and I told to myself, this exactly matches my strength. I think I'm good in communication, but I'm also good in being sociable with other people. And so that kind of passion helped me understand, okay, if that's the case, I will keep on learning. And sometimes even if it hurts my feelings that I have to ask that critique from a person. And sometimes I need to highlight that also. Sometimes the hardest part about evaluating yourself is proactively asking the question from the person because it can hurt your ego. So even if it does, I will ask that question. And sometimes kung ayaw na lang sabihin sa akin straight to my face, I will tell them, sige nga, paki-text na lang. Kung nahihiya kang, for example, sabihin sa akin. Because sometimes you have to adjust to how people communicate. Some people extroverted, some people may be introverted, or they just want to be honest with you also. So that's the first one. The second, I think, is try to be more observant of what other people tell you, even if it's not explicitly stated. So to give an example, pag napapansin mo sa trabaho that a lot of people are asking your help for this specific skill, I think it's a sign that you are extremely doing well in that specific skill. And I need to say that because sometimes we're not self-aware. We don't notice that it's actually where we're good at. Not because people are seeing it right in front of your face, but because people are acting the way they want to ask for help. So to give an example also, I didn't know when I was, so my third job was to work for a pharmaceutical company. And I didn't know that time that a part of my job was to do a lot of field work with a lot of medical representatives all over the Philippines. And that means I have to drive with them for 2 to 3 years to visit doctors. And then after I've been doing that for a few months, one of the feedback that I always get from the reps or from the managers is, sabi nila, alam mo John, sabi ng mga reps, nakakatawa ka daw. Like, pag nagda-drive kayo for 1 or 2 hours, you keep on cracking jokes and it makes them feel at ease to the point that they are willing to share what their problems are at work. And that's the reason why I'm able to report those issues and challenges to my boss. I didn't know that I could be that funny until someone said it to me. And the more I listened to people telling that to me, the more I realized, so kung strength ko din pala na maging funny, I can leverage on that strength. And the more I'm conscious about that strength, in the next meeting, I will continue reinforcing that strength because that makes me do better in my job. So being aware of what other people are telling you and being conscious of applying what they're telling to you is part of your evaluation also.
Great. Thank you so much. So it seems like there's really a balance of being sensitive, but not too sensitive, since you said you have to be sensitive to what other people might view your strengths are. And at the same time, you can't be too sensitive because you will be asking for their feedback on those strengths. So great to hear that's definitely going to be useful for our learners today, in terms of how they will be able to determine if the evaluation of their learning is at a certain stagnant point or if they can still continue learning. Great to hear. So we've been discussing all of these skills, how we can apply them and how we can even evaluate them. So after all of this discussion, can you share why do you think it's important to talk about this at all? So why is it important for the students to think about their future careers and the skills that they need at an early stage? If they're students pa lang sila, why do they need to think about their careers already?
Gosh, there's so many. I wish we have more time to discuss this now. If I were to draw this like a bar, so this is like my bar of what your life is. I think schooling, even if it's for 12 years or 14 years, this is just that portion of it. The rest of life is going to be this, right? So what you're actually learning is just a morsel. It's just a drop of blood or water from what you're about to learn in life. And I will also say this, even if you may have championed or na perfect mo ang iyong calculus, which I had a hard time, by the way, when I was in university, for example, even if you've perfected that, there are many moments in life wherein the benefit of learning calculus is not knowing how to derive X and Y. The benefit of learning calculus is the discipline that you needed.
Exactly. Very
to
true.
study that day in and day out, and that even if you fail the first exam, you don't easily lose it so that you can ace the second or third exam so that you can finally pass the course. I think most of the learnings that we get from school is the ethics part, the work ethics of what I need to establish in terms of discipline, my grit, my tenacity, etc. The second part, I think, is we don't spend too much time in school planning about the future. Most of the time, it's about, okay, I finished engineering, I finished medicine, but I don't really know what's going to happen in the next 20 or 30 years. And the sad part is, those 20 to 30 years are all going to be unpredictable. So marami sa atin, magaling sa exams, magaling natapos ng summa cum laude, etc. But the ability to identify and anticipate what's going to happen is so low. So I think the planning skill, so part of the planning skill is saying to yourself, okay, kung magaling ako sa math, am I also a good public speaker? Kung magaling ako sa English or sa history, do I also have the social skills? If magaling ako, for example, sa chemistry, do I know how to not give up when things don't go the way I want it to be? These things, you don't learn them easily in schools because there is no module or outline for them. Unless, of course, you're lucky to have teachers who will tell it to you instead. I think for me, Bianca, and maybe you can relate to this, my biggest regret when I was in university was I was so obsessed getting the highest scores in my class, which isn't bad. It's always going to be good if you want to aspire for. So in my school, uno is the highest score. But I get 1.25. I get so obsessed and say, anong ginawa kong mali? Have I spent more 3 hours of time learning this? And then looking back, I wish on top of those ACADS part, I wish I spent more time in my org, because when I spent more time with my org, mas natuto din sana ako na makipag-build ng relationships with people that I may not like, right? And I think that's important because when you enter the corporate world, there will be people who will not like you, and there will be people that you will not like. And even if you're the best in calculus, if you don't know how to handle these people, you will not succeed. That's part of the planning. That's part of the evaluation na third year ka pa lang, dapat may checklist ka na. What are those personalities and traits that people are telling me na kulang ako, na kailangan ko ng galingan so that when I enter the corporate world, kahit magaling ako sa math, hindi pala ako magaling sa teamwork or sa leadership, kailangan ko nang ayusin as early as now. So small things such as, for example, nainggit ako because when I was in university, I wish I participated in more fundraising activities. So every organization usually may fundraising activity, and I didn't join any because I felt it was so basic. But in fundraising, the challenge is not about raising the money. The challenge in fundraising is needing to talk to people who probably don't want to even meet up with you, wanting to prove to them that there is reason why you have to give us 10,000 pesos, right? Executing that on a piece of paper, on an email, on a PowerPoint presentations, those are the things that you learn. And those are actually what you'll be doing when you enter the corporate world. I wish I spent more time also on those things on top of my ACADS.
And I think you already touched upon it, but it seems like the other things you wanted to focus on aside from your academics tie back to the 3 skills that you shared earlier. In the case of the fundraising event organization, you would need communication
Skills, that's right.
And critical thinking skills. So it's great to see how those all tie in together. And I can definitely relate. Sometimes you really have to be, you just have to, it goes back to being in charge of our own learning, the self-learning, not being reliant on the content, but also looking at the skills that we can get from certain subjects that we feel aren't really useful in our everyday lives. And I can relate to you in the sense that I had a teacher who was straight up about it. She said, class, you're not going to use this after you graduate. This was an algebra. We were all shocked. She was teaching us about parabolas, ellipses, which is true. To this day, I graduated from high school and college.
Agreed.
I don't have to compute for any radius or circumference or any of those. But she was very clear. She said, you're not going to use these parabolas. What I'm teaching you is the skills, the patience for solving for X, for finding the right formula, trial and error. So I think for our learners, it's not just about mastering the concepts that we have in school, but the skills on how we arrive to learning about those concepts. So I believe now we have another question from our audience. Justin is ready. So if you can introduce yourself, what school you're from, and what your question is for Sir Jonathan.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Justin. I'm from Polytechnic University of the Philippines. So recently, I feel like I'm already starting to be equipped with the skills that you've mentioned earlier. But I'm quite unsure whether these skills fit the industry that I've currently chosen. Is this normal po ba?
Yes, very good question, by the way, Justin. And the reason why you're asking that is because, number one, most of us don't know yet which industry we may want to enter into. And sometimes, even if you already know what you want, maybe the industry or the company does not accept you because you didn't pass their requirements to be part of that company. I need to say this because in the Philippines, unfortunately, we are not always as blessed that we can be as choosy as we want. Diba? Marami sa atin, when we finish university, we end up in jobs that we may not want for now, but because we have to do it for a living, we have to take on that job. Right? So again, dito papasok ulit. So yung concept na when you look at the skills, what we know today is that don't focus on domain expertise. Focus on core values also. So what is domain expertise? Domain expertise is kailangan magaling ako sa marketing, kailangan magaling ako sa numbers. So they're very specific, right? But when you look at most companies today, especially for example, startup, kung sasali ka, they're not looking specifically for a marketing person. They're looking for a commercial or business person such that if the landscape changes, pwede kitang isabak sa marketing or sales at the same time, right? So a lot of what recruiters and interviewers are looking today are not specific skills, but the ability of the individual to be flexible given the skills that they have. Kaya ako, I'm always going to be biased, and I'm going to use that word. I'm going to be biased with communication skills because there is no job out there, unless of course you're not allowed to speak in your job, that does not require communication, right? Everything that will require you having to speak to a customer or speak to an internal client or even to write that email will require communication skills in this case. If I were to also add, if you're choosing for a specific job or industry, if you have the luxury to do so, so I'm going to make that caveat, please try to choose an industry where you know that the knowledge is also more flexible. It's not as specific sa pinakaumpisa. What do I mean by that? So sometimes we get lured na, oh, mataas ang sweldo, oh, maganda yung ibibigay sa akin. But the job is so specific to the point na nakakatatlong taon ka na sa trabaho na yan. And by the time that you want to change lanes, your knowledge is so niche that you cannot anymore transfer to a different industry or to a different job. So nakandado ka na. So that may not also be good to you. So that's why if you were to look for companies also, look for companies na malaki yung opportunity base. So meaning, pwede kang lumipat from marketing, meron silang department on sales, meron silang department on finance, meron silang department on, and again, I'm saying this from a place of privilege because we all cannot find a company na laging multinational or malaki. But if you can, push yourself to capture those companies, right? If you're young, and this is me again being biased, try to look for organizations wherein you know that there is space for you to move from one department to another. Para on your first 2 years, kung hindi mo nagustuhan ang sales, you can move to finance later on. And you can move also to marketing later on. What I don't want you to fall into is the trap na you've been doing the same thing for 5 years and it's already too late because it's the only skill that you know. Right? Unless, of course, you want to become a doctor or lawyer because yun talaga, it's a one-way street, right? Most of us are not gonna fall into that category as well.
Thank you very much, sir. And I think it also makes sense. Well, everything you said makes sense, especially since the industries themselves will be changing. So I hope for Justin, that answered your question. You know, it's important not just to be fixated on a certain domain of skills. Make sure you're adaptable for the skills of different fields as well. So I think that we can continue talking about this, but unfortunately our time is almost up already. So for our dear viewers, our audience members here, we will be sharing our feedback form for, of course, as Sir Jonathan said, it's not just a learning session today. We also have to be able to evaluate. So you can see the QR code there as well as the link. Please take a few seconds to take note of that link or even access the feedback form through the QR code already so that we can know how to improve our sessions, especially for the following episodes as well. So I think we learned so much today. Thank you so much, Sir Jonathan.
Thank you also.
The 3 skills that we need in the 21st century: communication, leadership, critical thinking, and of course, the importance of being sensitive as we face challenges, whether they are thinking about whether we're good enough, thinking if we're ready, and learning how to ensure that we know when we are ready and when we need to keep going. So I think it's great that we had this session today. We were able to learn about all these things for the 21st century and learn that as future-ready learners, it's not just about learning, but it's a constant process or cycle of evaluation as well. So do you have any final message for our learners today, Sir Jonathan?
There's this quote by Jim Rohn, and he says, "You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with."
Yes.
And what I've always noticed among fresh graduates is that most of the time, their careers were influenced by the people that they went out with the most when they were in their university. So, kunyari ako, I was strongly influenced to enter marketing because the people that I met were also into marketing. We loved understanding psychology. Bakit gusto ng mga tao ang red kapag may seats, kapag may sale, for example. And that influenced me to enjoy also what I'm still doing up until today. So, on top of learning both your ACADS and your co-curricular, choose the people that you hang out with the most on a daily basis because they will make or break how you see the world. If they're people of good influence, they can drag you to a place of also positivity, right? And if they're people with negativity, I think it's also time to evaluate if these people are contributing to your growth. So choose your friends wisely in school.
Okay, there you have it for our audience. Not just about learning and evaluation and knowing yourself and your strengths, but also knowing who you're spending time with and choosing the people that you spend time with. So thank you so much. We are so grateful that you were able to join us this afternoon, Sir Jonathan. And of course, the whole team is Grateful for all of the audience members, all of the viewers who came to join us today so that we can really take the opportunity, maximize this experience to be future ready. So with that, we are now officially closing our first installment in the hashtag Future Ready series. And we would like to invite all of our audience members to stay updated, keep in touch with Rex and Education PH, stay in tune with our social media so that you can be ready to join the next session. So thank you very much again, Sir Jonathan. Thank you to all of our audience members. You can follow Rex and Education PH. So once again, I'm Bianca Insigne, your host for the first installment in hashtag Future Ready. Thank you and have a wonderful afternoon. Enjoy the weekend. You can now binge on Netflix at the other time. All right. Thank you so much. Bye.